What's up, everyone? Welcome back. In this video, we are looking at the Week 8 NFL midweek look. I'll be back with a final look, as always, on Saturdays, but this is just kind of a first look at the slate, how, what types of players look appealing, what type of games we want to target and stack up. So let's get started. As always, appreciate if you guys would hit the like button on the video, subscribe if you have not already as well. If you want to follow on Twitter, it's at the DFS process, and all the other info is in the description as well. So let's get started. First thing is probably want to do is look at the totals for the week. The Chiefs currently come in as the highest total team at 34.25. They are a 20-point favorite though against the Jets. Then we have one of the most appealing game stacks, which is going to be Green Bay and Minnesota. Minnesota's getting Dalvin Cook back this week. Currently, the Packers have just a tick below 30 total. You have the Titans and Bengals game, which could be a shootout. You have the Seahawks on the slate. You have the Browns, even though they are very banged up now with no OBJ and still no Chubb. So still going to open up some more value, though. Like you could look at Landry, and maybe they might not have Hooper again this week, so we could go back to Harrison Bryant as a cheap tight end, but I think they're appealing. I think the Raiders are also somewhat appealing. Those are the main teams that I'm looking at stacking this week. And I like the Chargers a bit against Denver, even though the pace isn't great against Denver. But I like the Chargers offense, especially like Keenan Allen at a cheap price point. And we get the debut of Tua this week. He's not the super inexpensive. I mean, him starting came out before the salaries were released, so the site's kind of adjusted. At least Draftkings said he's 56 on Draftkings. He's playable. Yeah, if you think he's gonna have a big debut. There are some other safer plays this week at quarterback, but I think he definitely should be in the GPP consideration. Starting at the top, you have Mahomes at 8,100. He is facing off against his Jets defense. He has all the upside in the world. The only concern is going to be a blowout this week, and I don't know if I want to play him against the Jets at 8,100. I usually want to go a bit cheaper with my quarterbacks. Usually on DraftKings, I don't normally spend over 8,000 for quarterbacks, and I don't think that this is the best spot. Even though it's a great matchup against the Jets, I think they could easily get ahead by a couple touchdowns and then rely on the running game. I'm not expecting it to be a game stack or anything like that. So not that interested in Mahomes this week. Wilson also looks fine. He has a somewhat tough matchup against against the 49ers. He has carried the Seahawks so far this season. His interceptions have kind of been up the last couple weeks. Has thrown 5 picks the last 3 weeks. But this is just a really, really good offense. It's a tough defense that he's facing. But Wilson puts up points every single week. So no concern with him to play if you wanted to play him. Some other guys that look a bit more appealing is definitely Rodgers in that potential game stack. You can stack him with Devontae Adams, possibly Aaron Jones. You stack all 3 of them up. That game is going to be super appealing. Lamar Jackson's price continues to go down every single week, or it's been down, pretty much every single week. 81 to 79, 70, 70. He's down to 7,400. It's a tough matchup for him as well against a very, very good Pittsburgh defense. Pittsburgh's only undefeated team. Could see a bit of a lower scoring game in this one. Both defenses are really solid. The price tag on him makes you want to at least take a shot in some tournaments. At least have him in your player pool. But it is still a scary matchup. So I'll go continue searching for my quarterback a bit cheaper. Josh Allen, price tag on him continues to decline. He also has a lot of these top quarterbacks have tougher matchups this week, so I think people will go cheap at quarterback. But Josh Allen, I think he's gonna have a big week pretty soon. Herbert's price tag has gone up to 6,900. It's a fine spot. I just don't know if at that point I'd rather go to Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. I think. Let me get into some guys I'm not. Tannehill's in play. I'm not that interested in Ben against the Ravens defense. Goff, I'm not thrilled about paying 65 for him. I'm not that interested in Stafford or Breeze. I think Burrow is in play. I think Mayfield's in play. Those 2 I like at 61 and 62. And then if you wanted to take a shot on Tua, you could. Or Cam Newton, his price tag is really cheap because he's been awful the last couple weeks. But he's still Cam Newton. He's still going to give you the upside with his legs. I think it's a pretty good spot to buy low on Cam Newton at 5,700. He's not looked good, but not like he had the easiest matchup last week against a very good 49ers defense. I definitely expect him to bounce back, and he even said after that game that his job could definitely be on the line. So I think he still showed a lot of the upside in the first couple weeks. Um, hasn't really got it there with his passing, but 57 for him should be in your player pool. And then one cheap other guy that you could look at as cheap is Derek Carr against Cleveland. It's a fine spot for him. He's just one of those guys that you don't really know who to stack him with because he kind of spreads the ball around. Maybe Darren Waller if he could, but I think if Edwards is out again, then like Aguilar has made a splash, and it's tough for me to say because I have been an Eagles fan for my entire life, and he has done nothing but hurt the Eagles except for that Super Bowl year. But he's looked good this year. He's already had like 4 touchdown receptions. He has a couple of really, really long completions. I think if Edwards is out again, then he could be a sneaky guy to stack with Carr at a very cheap price point. Both of them are super cheap. You have Josh Jacobs is cheap. Like this game looks really nice to stack up. But right now I'm thinking I like Joe Burrow. I'll probably go Burrow, Mayfield, or maybe Derek Carr right now. Burrow has just looked so good this year. He's faced some tough matchups. He's faced at Baltimore, a really good defense. At Indianapolis, been a really good defense this year. He's faced the Chargers defense, a couple of easier matchups there. But against Cleveland, last week he put up 38 fantasy points. The thing you like about him is that they like to throw the ball quite a bit. And especially in a matchup like this, which could be a shootout with how good Tennessee's offense has been, I'm expecting him to continue to throw. He's thrown for over 300 yards in every single game except for 2 so far, so 5 out of 7 weeks. Gives you some upside with his legs. Not the fastest guy in the world, but he can, if a busted play breaks out, he can go out and get you a couple yards. So I really like him this week. I think the price tag on him is really fair, and I think there are some great plays to stack him with. So Burrow right now is one of my guys I'm considering at quarterback. Moving on to running backs, you have Kamara at 82. He was fine, just didn't get into the end zone, which is kind of what you needed. He didn't kill you at 7,900, putting up 23 fantasy points, but still wasn't like the best point per dollar play at running back last week. It's a tough matchup this week against the Bears defense, but he's still having Kamara. He's still going to get a lot of the work, especially with Michael Thomas looking like he could miss this week once again. If that happens, definitely Kamara is going to be in play. There are a lot of really good running backs in play this week with Kamara. Henry against the Cincinnati Bengals rush defense can put up another 150-plus yard performance. Cook is expected back. Jones, I think, is expected back. I think he will be back. He's still not practicing, so maybe play Cook instead. You have Kareem Hunt, who is now limited, but I think he's still going to probably continue to play and continue to get a lot of work. They've kind of really decreased the role of Johnson, who the week that Chubb did go out, he kind of split some work with Kareem Hunt, but last couple weeks it's just been Hunt out of the backfield. Jonathan Taylor gets a good matchup, but I'm not thrilled about playing anybody in this Colts offense. They just spread the ball around. Phillip Rivers is not throwing a lot. They rely on their defense. They play slow. It's just not that exciting of a team to stack. Edwards-Helaire now might have to deal with some less touches with Le'Veon Bell in there. The thing you want to look at is with the 49ers so banged up that they basically have one running back that's kind of gotten NFL experience in McKinnon. No Wilson, no Mostert, no Tevin Coleman. So Jerick McKinnon show. 5,700, he's going to get a ton of work. I think he looks really good this week. Also, Carlos Hyde could get some more work, but his matchup is a lot tougher. Definitely think you could look at McKinnon at 5,700. He didn't get that much work last week as Jeff Wilson kind of stole the show, but in the spots where he has started, he's been fine early in this season when they were banged up at running back, and now he is basically the only healthy guy there. So expecting potentially 20 touches out of McKinnon this week. And then you kind of have to pick who you like out of the top. I think still you can never really go wrong with Alvin Kamara at 8,200. He's just, especially with Michael Thomas, not practicing, not even sure if he's going to play or not. He has only played one game this season. Heard some potential trade rumors with Thomas, so I think if he ends up playing, then Kamara will get a little bit of a downgrade and it might go to one of the other running backs. But if he's out again, then Kamara is still going to continue to get so much volume and just give you so much upside that it's really tough to just kind of ignore him. So with Burrow, I like to stack him with one of his weapons. He's been throwing the ball a lot, which you like to see. Looks like Mixon might be back. You could take a shot with him if you want. He's cheap at 6,300. But it's really been three guys that have been getting a lot of work, and it's Boyd, Higgins, and Green. John Ross, they've given up on. And none of these other three kind of get enough snaps, or none of these other four get enough snaps. I still do not understand why A.J. Green is super inexpensive. The targets are there. 24 targets the last 2 weeks. The touchdowns are going to come. No touchdowns yet, but with targets comes touchdowns. And this week against Tennessee, I'm expecting at least one touchdown from A.J. Green with the amount of targets that he's been getting. The amount of targets that he should continue to get. His snap counts, his snap rate has been much higher than it was earlier this season, the last couple weeks. They've really made it an effort to get him more involved. I will hopefully hope that people continue to play Higgins over A.J. Green, continue to play guys like even Boyd over A.J. Green, but A.J. Green gives you the most upside. I'm not paying 56 for Higgins, who has 3 touchdowns, but take away 1 touchdown last week, he has 12 fantasy. For that reason, I still like A.J. Green a lot, just because he's so cheap. Boyd is in play too. You can double stack if you wanted to, but right now Green is the one guy that I will definitely have. Then Devontae Adams is 8,800. Absolutely broke the slate last week with a 169-yard performance. It's a great spot against the Vikings to continue that. So he's definitely in play. He's expensive though, but definitely worth it. I think Thielen is in play at 7,200 as another top-end guy. The Seahawks I'm a little bit hesitant on because you never know who's going to go off between Metcalf or Lockett. Probably this week it might be Metcalf, but the matchup is still scary enough. You have some other guys that you could look at cheaper, like Keenan Allen is only 6,200. He continues to get a ton of targets. From the 1 week that he had 2 targets was the week that he got hurt right after his touchdown. But he continues to get a ton of work and a ton of volume from Herbert. That 13, 19 targets, 10 targets. You're getting double-digit targets out of him. Potentially get double-digit targets out of A.J. Green again this week. So I like both of them at cheap price points at receiver. No Beckham. No Beckham for the rest of the season, which means that Jarvis Landry is going to become the number 1 guy. You could also look at some other guys on the Browns at receiver, but I do think that Jarvis Landry is going to separate from the cream and just rise to become Baker Mayfield's favorite target. So goes from being the number 2 in a offense that doesn't pass a lot to being the number 1, and it's still an offense that doesn't pass a lot, but it's probably going to be a bit of a shootout this week. The matchup is super nice against the Raiders' pass defense. That definitely liking Jarvis Landry at a sub $6,000 price tag. You could look at Ayuk at 58, just because no Deebo Samuel is going to be the number 1 guy at receiver. I'm still not that interested in the Pittsburgh Steelers now that they're all healthy. It's tough to play Claypool or tough to play Juju or tough to play anybody. You never know who's going to go off any given week, and this matchup is so tough. I'm not that interested in any of them. Aguilar, I'm interested in if Edwards is out again, then because he's been getting a lot of the snaps with Edwards out the last couple weeks, and he's been making the most of it. If you wanted to take a punt play, you could play Preston Williams at 4,300, or you could punt with Scantling, although he's been awful, but 3,800 price tag is as cheap as it gets. So that's kind of it at receiver. If I am paying up, it's going to be for Adams. It's going to be, hopefully we get some more value, so I can definitely do that. Or if Michael Thomas is in, then I might go Adams and go down at running back instead of Kamara. But right now I like these 3 receivers. I think you can get 10-plus targets out of every single one of them. A tight end, Kittle, 7K is expensive, but going to be one of the better tight ends this week with no Samuel. Going to continue to get all the work and all the volume. Gotta like Kelsey a bit. It's still not going to know you never know how many receptions he's going to have this week with them probably winning by 35 million points. But he's still Travis Kelsey, so probably will be the reason why they kind of get out to a big lead. You have Gesicki, going to wait to see how his connection kind of is with Tua at quarterback. Andrews has been a disappointment this year. The matchup is tough. I'm not interested. Higbee, if he's out again, then you could look at Everett as a cheap price point. Hooper potentially out again. Does not know if he will be in or not. So if he's out, then play Harrison Bryant, who was one of the best tight ends coming out of college. He's only 3,200, so his price tag has not increased. They're not that happy with Njoku. They might trade him in a couple days or before the deadline. So I think you could look at him at 3,200 if he's in. We could see other tight ends that look good this week. Maybe Robert Tonyan, 4,300. Rodgers likes him. The targets are not going to be as prominent as they were without Adams, obviously, but still potentially can go off at a cheap price. Henry is cheap enough at 42 to take a shot. And that's kind of it. Don't know if I want to. I mean, last week it was Parham that kind of stole the touchdown, or he's still the two catches that he has this season have been both for touchdowns, which is probably super tilting if you played Henry those weeks. But could look there. You could look at Will Dissly. He's been getting a little bit more involvement at a cheap price point. But that's kind of it at tight end. Flex wise, see if we could maybe go with like probably a 5 to 6K flex to see if anybody else looks appealing to make a lineup with. Tight ends, I'm kind of waiting to see if Hooper's out to see who I play. We have a cheap Josh Jacobs this week. If you wanted to take a shot with him, I think this could be the week. At only 6,200, it leaves you 3,700 to go cheap at defense. You could even pay up more at defense and go with like Brian if he's in, or even go up from Josh Jacobs. But last week didn't really get that much work. It was against a really tough rush defense. This week it's still against a tough rush defense, but I'm still kind of liking him at only $6,200. I think he still gives you a lot of upside. There is nobody else that's really kind of taking any volume away. So as a first kind of guy, I mean, in this $6,200 range, I don't know if anybody else looks more appealing than Josh Jacobs. Like, I think I definitely play him a lot more than any of these other guys in this similar range. And we'll just see if anybody else has kind of been taking some of his snaps away. I do not really believe so. Like, Booker has been disappointing. He only got 3 carries last week. Jalen Richard has only got 7 carries, but probably more in those passing situations, even though maybe he just handed off to him. But I do think Josh Jacobs is still the guy that is probably going to be too cheap this week, and I don't think he's going to get a lot of ownership. Could be a nice way to differentiate, and I definitely expect the Raiders to put up points against this Browns defense. It could be Jacobs. He can also catch passes, which is nice. So that's it for the first look on DraftKings. I will touch on Fanduel for you all. All right, over on Fanduel at quarterback, they have Mahomes, no surprise, most expensive guy, followed by Wilson. Rodgers, Lamar Jackson is still pretty cheap considering like where he's been for the most of the year. The matchup was tough enough. I'm not that interested. Burrow is a little bit more expensive than he is on DraftKings than you kind of would like at 76. Still in play. Maybe you could look at Derek Carr. Maybe you could look at Baker Mayfield at 72 against the Raiders. Then it kind of dies off. Tua is only 68, so maybe it becomes a little bit more appealing. So probably consider going with still consider Burrow, even though he's expensive at 76. I just like the matchup, and I think you could also look at Baker if you wanted to at 72. It's just a really good spot against the Raiders. I know he hasn't been great this season. He had a good fourth quarter last week. I think they're probably going to. I mean, it just makes it a little bit easier to stack him and Jarvis Landry together. Both are cheap. It's a really good spot. I definitely think Baker's going to have to throw a little bit more going forward. At running back, Kamara is the third cheapest. So Kamara should be the most expensive out of Cook or Henry. Henry is a beast, but doesn't give you the upside that Kamara does in receiving. Cook is also a beast, but should not be $200 more expensive than Kamara. Kamara is just on another level when he's getting into the end zone, and he usually does find his way into the end zone. But I like him a lot. You could look at Kareem Hunt at 82. Josh Jacobs way more expensive at 78. I'm not touching him on FanDuel. Mixon is okay, but going to continue to go right back to McKinnon, who's only 6K, going to get 20 touches. That's what you want out of your running backs. I think he looks really good against the Seattle defense. Receiver, Adams the top guy. I like Thielen this week. I like Keenan Allen. Is a little bit more expensive, but still in play. I like Allen Robinson as a cheap play at 68. And then if you wanted to stack Baker Mayfield with his number one guy, it's probably going to be Jarvis Landry. He's only 5,800 on Fanduel. It's super easy to play him. AJ Green is also 58, so kind of bite the bullet on those two. And I probably will try to get up to Adams if I can. Leaves you with 57. I think that is pretty doable. Defense this week, maybe look at the Chiefs, maybe look at the Colts. See if anybody in this range looks somewhat interesting. Not really seeing anything. Maybe look at the Chargers. They're not super cheap. Maybe the Seahawks at 37. The defense, the sites have kind of made it tough for you to go super cheap at defense. Maybe the Bills with how bad Cam Newton has been with his turnovers this year. But we'll see where I end up with right now. Just put in the Colts. This leaves you with 6,100 left at tight end. Potentially looking at Bryant. It's only 5K. And then you have 7,300 left to pay up for another guy, maybe another running back. Or you're getting right in that Lockett, Cup, Taylor range. So we'll see. Maybe we can try to get Thielen and Adams, and kind of stack it up that way, and then go with a $4,400 defense. Let's see, $4,400. The Browns are there. The Chargers, like the Chargers. Broncos offense been ugly to say the least. So this is just kind of a first look. I mean, it looks pretty good to me. But thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it, and good luck